Hi buddies! Welcome back to Emergency Pineapple Studios. I know I've been gone for quite a while. There was a lot going on, I had a major move go on, then I had no Wi-Fi for a little while. Now all that's been fixed. I'm back to making videos, and we're going to start by having Pokemon that I think have the wrong types, Unova Edition. Now, I've done this before. Basically, I just go through which Pokemon in the Unova decks that I think have the wrong types, and I just either assign them new types or I add a type that I think they deserve. So, without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start out by talking about all three of the starters. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about their final stages. Serperior genuinely should have been either a Psychic type or a Dragon type, and to be honest, I think I'm leaning more towards Psychic type for balance reasons. The fact of the matter is that Serperior gets Psychic and Dragon type moves, and I think it would just have benefited from having a second type. Emboar should not have been a fighting type. It looks too much like Ganon from Legend of Zelda, and I think that the Dark type fits it so much better. I actually think that Emboar as a Dark type makes so much more sense than Incineroar being a Dark type, and that's saying something. Finally, we have Samurott, and it and Duat are both actual swordsmen, and the swordsman archetype has been genuinely fighting types. And I think it should have made use of that, and I think we should have had Samurott at the very least be a water fighting type. This way, there's actually still a level of balance with the secondary typings. You would have had Grass Psychic, where it was weak, which was strong against the water fighting, who was then strong against the Fire Dark, who was then strong against the Grass Psychic. It would have all been balanced out, and all three of them would have been significantly better. After the starters, we're going to jump all the way down to Audino, and to be frank, I think it's kind of weird that Audino did not have the fairy type to begin with. Audino is essentially a ripoff of Chansey and Blissey when Unova had its soft reset. And frankly, it is a healing Pokemon, it is kindness and magic, all the things that fit with the fairy type. It should have just gotten the fairy type like it's Mega. Speaking of the fairy type, I actually think that Lilligant also should have gotten the fairy type, because I always thought it was weird that its counterpart Whimsicott got it. And frankly, lilies are my favorite flower. I always had a soft spot for Lilligant. I think it should have gotten the fairy type. Granted, I will say Lilligant got some love with Hisuian Lilligant being the grass fighting type, which is also a really good typing to have, but I think it came a little too late. I actually still like original Lilligant significantly more. But again, my opinion. Jumping away from the fairy types for a second, we're going to actually talk about Red and Blue Striped Basculin. All of the Pokedex entries about these Pokemon talk about how foul-tempered these things are, and because of that, like other water types that are known for their foul tempers, I think they should have gotten the Dark type. This would have made them at least, better than having the gimmick of having a red versus blue stripe on them. And frankly, a water Dark type is nothing to sneeze at, but it is kind of like firefighting. We have way too many of them, so I can kind of understand why they didn't give it to it. But I do think that they should have been Water Dark based on a lot of their dex entries. Caveat, White Striped Basculin should stay pure Water type because of its timid nature. Next we jump to Cofagrigus. Cofagrigus is a ghost that's attached to a solid gold sarcophagus. Now, because of that, I actually think it should have been a Steel type. Now, the reason why I say it should be a Steel type is just because, because it's attached to the gold and it can learn some Steel type moves, it would have made this Pokemon significantly better. It would have been up there with like Aegislash and Goldengo for one of the best type combinations in the game. Frankly, I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't do this. Now, for those of you arguing that it's gold, not steel, we have other Steel types who aren't made of steel. We have like Cufant, Caparaja, Goldengo that I mentioned earlier. Let's see, what's another one that isn't actually made of steel? I don't know, I might think of some. Leave some down in the comments below that aren't made of steel but got the steel typing. Speaking of the steel typing, I think that Garbodor should have also gotten it. Not Trubbish though, because Trubbish is just a sentient trash bag. Garbodor is based off of a landfill, and if you notice some parts of it, it actually has some steel parts like a tailpipe for a hand. Frankly, I think if it got the Steel type, people would hate on this Pokemon significantly less. Frankly, I don't understand the hate because as a concept of a Pokemon, it has a unique design, and I know it's supposed to be kind of like a Muck ripoff, but it's actually kind of a better concept for a Pokemon other than Muck. And if it got the Steel type, I think people would have hated it significantly less. I think it would have been much better received. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still sentient garbage, but again, a better typing would have genuinely helped this Pokemon. Next up is the Gothita line, and I'm gonna be honest about something. For the longest time, I have actually mistyped this entire line because I actually thought they were Psychic Dark types. To find out that they were pure Psychic, I was like, wait, hang on, have I been mistyping these things for over 10 years? Turns out, I had. So, mea culpa. We're gonna move on from that. But the fact that they don't have the Dark type seems a little odd. They are in fact based off of the concept of the Goth art style, and as well as the Goth, fashion? The dark clothes, the dark makeup, and all that. And Gothitelle literally sees the end of the world. That's a little dark to me, so genuinely I don't understand why they're not a dark type altogether. So, can you really blame me for mistyping these things? Next up are Deerling and Sawsbuck. Kind of. Now, the whole gimmick behind these Pokemon is that their looks change based on the seasons. I think it would have been so much cooler if that their types changed during the season. Hear me out on this one. I think that the spring one should have kept the normal grass type, but then when we move to summertime, it should have become like a normal fire type or something. Then we get to autumn, and because of their aggressive nature, I think they should have gotten like the normal fighting type, because now they're ready to buck heads with each other. And then when we get to winter, it becomes a normal ice type. Now, I don't think that, it should change based on the season of the game. It depends on when you caught it. If you catch the Deerling at a certain time, it would always stay that type. But because of this, I actually think this Pokemon would have been so much cooler if it just changed type with the seasons. But I kind of understand why they didn't do that, but I think it would have been so much cooler. And let's be real, Sawsbuck actually looks really cool. Except for Spring Sawsbuck, that can go in the garbage. Next we have Alola-Mola, and I'm going to be very quick about this. Alola-Mola's biggest claim to fame is that it has the Regenerator ability and it's super bulky. Otherwise, it's a fairly forgettable Pokemon. If it was given the Fairy type, it might actually see some more competitive use outside of Draft League. But it's a forgettable fish. It's a love fish. It should have just gotten the Fairy type. Next up is the Axew line, but not Axew. I'm mostly focusing on Fracture and Haxorus. And I'm going to be honest, I think it should have benefited from the Steel or Fighting type, and to be honest, I think it should have gotten the Fighting type. The fact of the matter is that these Pokemon are aggressive, but not like, vicious or mean. They like to fight. They're like Vikings or gladiators. And the fact of the matter is, it's quite literally an axe dragon. Genuinely, I think it would have just benefited from being a fighting type. I had 3 big gripes with Haxorus. Gripe number 1, it has pseudo-legendary leveling without the pseudo-legendary status. It does not have 600 base stat total. Gripe number 2, it is monotyped as a dragon type, which doesn't make it all that great. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not bad, it's just not amazing. And I think that if it had the fighting type, it would be significantly better. Granted, it'd be quad weak to fairy type, but hey, fighting is not a bad secondary type to have. My third gripe is it feels kind of like a ripoff of Garchomp, but that's a whole different video. But frankly, justice for the Axe Dragon, make it a fighting type. It looks like a Viking. And the last Pokemon from Unova who I think has the wrong typing is Excelgor. Like some of the other Pokemon from this video, my main issue is the fact that it's single typed. If I had to give it a second type, I'm giving it the Ghost type. But I actually have a reason for this one, so hear me out. One of my favorite gimmicks about this Pokemon, or at least, the Shelmet line, is the fact that you have to trade a Shelmet for a Carablast. And upon the trade, the lamp/armor goes to the other Pokemon. Now, Carablast, when it gets the shell, gets armored and becomes Escavalier, becoming a bug steel type, which is a good type combination. However, Excelgor kind of just sheds its steel-like armor and goes, haha. But it's kind of based off of a superhero. It's also based off of a genie, which is a kind of spirit. So I think that Bug Ghost would have fit Excelgor fairly well. And I think it would have been a better Bug Ghost type than Shedinja. Now, no shade to Shedinja, but just in general, I think this Pokemon is a little lackluster in comparison to its counterpart. But again, this is just an opinion, and I think that Excelgor could have been so much cooler than it actually is. thank you all for watching. I know that I haven't posted in a long time. I haven't made a lot of videos. I've just been very busy, and I'm looking to make videos way more frequently now that I'm no longer, in the process of a major move. So, with that, see you next time.